The MLB season is already off to a crazy start. Besides the Shohei Ohtani and translator Ippei betting scandal, the biggest story for the Dodgers going into the season is the fact that Mookie Betts is now their starting shortstop. Yes, Mookie Betts, the former MVP who won 6 Gold Gloves in the outfield, is now moving to shortstop at 31 years old. Mookie played just 98 innings at shortstop last season, but prior to this, he hasn't played shortstop since his senior year in high school, which was all the way back in 2011. But what if I told you this was a genius move from the Dodgers? Across baseball over the last 15 years, we've seen teams think outside of the box in order to get their best hitters on the field. In 2012 and 13, the Tigers moved Miguel Cabrera from first base to third base because they acquired Prince Fielder, who could only play first base. Miguel Cabrera was not great defensively at third base, and the Tigers were one of the worst fielding teams in baseball. They had negative 36 defensive runs saved, which ranked 27th in baseball over this 2-year span. If you aren't familiar with defensive runs saved, it's a metric that indicates how many runs a player saved or costed his team in the field compared to other players at his position. 0 defensive runs saved would mean you were an average fielder. So negative 36 defensive runs saved for a team is awful. But all things considered, this didn't matter because Miguel Cabrera and Prince Fielder were the best offensive duo in baseball. Prince Fielder was 7th in OPS Plus with 55 home runs over this span, while Miguel Cabrera won back-to-back MVPs and, in 2012, hit for the Triple Crown, leading baseball in home runs, average, and RBIs. The Tigers won 88 games and 93 games in these 2 seasons, and the experiment of sacrificing defense to move Miguel Cabrera to third was well worth it. More recently, we saw the Phillies do a similar experiment. Going into 2022, they signed Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber. Both were exceptional hitters, but defensively, they were abysmal. Kyle Schwarber had negative 8 defensive runs saved, and Castellanos had negative 7, putting both of them in the bottom 3 percentile in all of baseball. The Phillies' plan all year was to put one of them at DH, but Bryce Harper hurt his elbow, and the Phillies had to play Schwarber and Castellanos in the field. The Phillies knew this would be an uphill battle, but they created a strategy that saved their team. Their analytics team noticed that Nick Castellanos was a below-average fielder according to outs above average on all balls hit over his head, all balls hit in and to his right, and all balls hit straight in. The only situation where Castellanos was not a below-average fielder was on balls hit in and to his left. So throughout the postseason, they moved Castellanos deeper and closer to center field, so he would have to come in on balls and to his left. And Brandon Marsh, the Phillies center fielder, would get anything to his right. This strategy played perfectly to Castellanos' strengths, and this was how he was able to make so many clutch plays in the field to help lead the Phillies to the World Series. The Phillies put their offense and pitching first and found ways to work smarter by putting their players in the best positions possible on defense, and it paid off. Then, in 2023, the Phillies did something similar to what the Dodgers are doing with Mookie Betts right now. They moved Bryce Harper to first base, a position he's never played in his whole career. Due to Bryce Harper's elbow injury causing him to get Tommy John surgery, he really couldn't throw the ball. Instead of sticking to DH, Harper suggested he should move to first base. That way he could play in the field without throwing as much, and the Phillies could maximize their defense and offense by moving Schwarber to DH. This move worked perfectly, as Harper, who's a very diverse athlete, transitioned great to first base. The Phillies made it 1 game away from winning the National League again, and now it looks like first base will be Harper's home for the immediate future. Also, last season, the Padres tried this approach. They had a surplus of talented infielders with Ha-Sung Kim, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Manny Machado. It looked like Kim was going to be the odd man out and not be an everyday player, but the thing was, Kim was a lot more valuable to the Padres than their third outfielder, David Dahl at the time. So, they decided to move shortstop Fernando Tatis Jr. to right field, a position he's barely played before. Tatis was a very talented athlete who has a cannon of an arm, so on paper, it seemed like he would make a great outfielder, and this transition was a perfect fit. He was second in all of baseball in defensive runs saved with 27 and won the Platinum Glove Award given to the MLB's best fielder. The Padres had an underwhelming 2023 season, but this was one thing they did right. as it ended up giving them the best offensive and defensive lineup combination they could possibly have. But all these examples we mentioned are not as extreme as Mookie Betts moving to shortstop. Moving from shortstop to right field is a lot easier than moving from right field to shortstop. Shortstop is one of the hardest positions in baseball to play, and for a 31-year-old to move here seems crazy. Although, there are many reasons why this will still work. Mookie was originally drafted by the Red Sox as an infielder. However, when he was called up for the Red Sox, they already had a great middle infielder with Dustin Pedroia at second base and a top prospect, Xander Bogaerts, at shortstop. The Red Sox asked Betts if he would move to the outfield so he could get playing time, and he transitioned great there and spent 10 seasons as one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. Betts, however, does still have the skills of a middle infielder. In 70 games at second base last season, he was 7th in defensive runs saved while playing half as many games as the rest of the second basemen ahead of him. Then, late in the year, the Dodgers tried him at shortstop. Betts, in an admittedly small sample size of only 98 innings last year, was league average at shortstop with 0 defensive runs saved. This might not sound great on the surface, but for 2024, all the Dodgers need is an average defending shortstop, and here's why. The Dodgers have quite a few positions on lock for this season. Let's take a look at their projected depth chart. Will Smith will be their starting catcher, with Freddie Freeman starting at first base, and Max Muncy starting at third base. No debate there. Shohei Ohtani, due to injury, can only hit and can't throw right now, so he's locked in at DH for this season. James Outman and Teoscar Hernandez are both average defensive outfielders and great hitters, so they will occupy 2 outfield spots. Gavin Lux is returning from a torn ACL this year and has promised to be a great player. Lux in his career has played all over the infield, so he'll get a chance to start at either shortstop or second base this season versus righties. Now, this leaves us with 4 potential players left: Jason Hayward, Chris Taylor, Miguel Rojas, and Mookie Betts. Mookie is of course going to have to play somewhere because he's a top 5 player in baseball, but where makes the most sense? Miguel Rojas is one of the best defensive shortstops in all of baseball, but his 51 OPS plus versus righties makes him a huge liability at the plate. Then, Chris Taylor, who can play infield and outfield, runs into the same problem, where he has a below league average OPS plus of 96 versus righties. Now, Jason Hayward, on the other hand, was great at the plate versus righties with a 123 OPS plus. And he was great in the outfield with 5 DRS. This combination of defense and hitting makes him no doubt more valuable versus righties than Miguel Rojas and Chris Taylor, so you have to start Hayward. The Dodgers need these 9 bats in their lineup when facing a righty, and the only way to fit them in is by putting Mookie in the infield. Then, with Gavin Lux coming off the torn ACL, Mookie might be the better option at shortstop. Gavin Lux is a good defender, but not great, and shortstop is one of the most demanding physical positions in baseball. Coming off an injury this season, he might not be as sharp at shortstop, and with the entire offseason to focus on Mookie Betts playing at shortstop, he could come into the 2024 season even better than we saw in his short sample size last season. The Dodgers are not going to commit to a move this big unless they think it'll work, and they have likely seen enough from Betts at shortstop in the offseason to feel more confident letting him play there in the regular season. Against lefties, they may switch things up and put Rojas in the lineup, but versus righties, the depth chart only makes sense with Mookie at shortstop. The Dodgers are great at putting players in the right situation. Last season, they had 21 positioning runs saved. This stat combines the team's infield and outfield alignments and scores them based on how their positioning has contributed to making a play. 21 runs saved by positioning is not good, but it's great. The Dodgers know how to put their fielders in the right positions to be successful, and this, combined with their great defenders surrounding Mookie Betts, makes me not worry about his position change at all. What matters most for the Dodgers is getting all the top bats in their lineup, and when healthy, this is one of the best lineups in MLB history. Finally, let's remember, Mookie is one of the best athletes in the world, and if anyone can change positions, he can. It's time we stop worrying about what is normal and what isn't in baseball. It's 2024. Players will flip bats. A slow guy with a 190 batting average can be an elite level leadoff hitter, and just because a player has never played a position before doesn't mean it can't work. Mookie Betts at shortstop is great for baseball. Please consider subscribing.